Good morning. Happy Wednesday. It's hat day at school, so I'm wearing my Nike hat. But today I'm going to be talking about Daniel 6 is when Daniel is in the lion's den. And the whole chapter is really, really interesting, but every time I read it, I get something new out of it. So this time it was just really interesting from the perspective of the king and Daniel's character or who he was as a person. So it starts off by saying that Daniel proved himself more capable than all the other administrators and high officers. And so because of his great ability, the king made plans to place him over the entire empire. So then, of course, all the people, because he was doing things right. It says that he was faithful, always responsible, and completely trustworthy. So this is who he is as a person, representing God, like doing his job, doing his day-to-day activities. It says he was handling government affairs, but they couldn't find anything to criticize him. The people that were jealous of him could not find anything to criticize or condemn his character or who he was. I thought that was very interesting. So instead, they couldn't find anything about his life to criticize or what did I say? Yeah, so they attacked his faith instead. So they were like, okay, we're just gonna go with his faith. We know that he prays 3 times a day, and he gives thanks to God 3 times a day. And the king said that for 30 days they weren't supposed to serve anyone but this king. And of course, they went to the king and they said, Daniel is still praying. We found him praying 3 times a day. We have proof. We all saw him, blah, blah, blah. And so I thought it was interesting that the king, it says here that the king was trying to figure out how he could get Daniel out of this predicament. He was literally trying to figure out, what else can I do? Because I said that they were going to be thrown into the lion's den if they don't obey my new rules of not, praising God or praising me and not other gods. So anyway, of course, the king had to put him in the lion's den, and we all know the story. The king had to do what he said, because these guys were like, hey, Daniel's praising God. So anyway, I thought it was interesting that it says that the king, after he placed Daniel in the lion's den, he said, may your God whom you serve so faithfully rescue you. He told that to Daniel. And then he went back home. He returned to his palace and spent the night fasting. It doesn't say if he was fasting for Daniel. I don't know. I'm going to look more into it. But I just thought it was interesting that he refused to do his usual entertainment and couldn't sleep at all that night. So I'm thinking, I don't know. It doesn't say anything on the commentary, on the notes. But guys, this is so crazy because his conscience did not let him sleep, and he spent the night fasting. Who knows? Obviously, he knows he did wrong, because Daniel, like it says, he was faithful. He was always responsible. He was, completely trustworthy. Another word that comes to mind, he was diplomatic in his duties, in his affairs. And so the king knew that. And then it says, very early the next morning, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den to see if Daniel was dead or whatever. And the king was overjoyed when he saw, it literally says that in verse 23, the king was overjoyed when he found out that, Daniel was not dead. So guys, it's just amazing how when we do things, and I'm learning this myself, but when we do things, when we are responsible, when we are faithful, when we are a completely trustworthy person, it pays off. People notice, people are watching you, everything that you do. And I know that because it's one of those things that I've learned over the years to do things right. I'm a person of, I like to get stuff done. I like to do my best. I like to set high standards for my students, for myself personally as a person. But anyway, God helps us do that. God helps us. It says that we are to be representatives of him. I just read that a couple days ago, that we are supposed to be representatives of, Jesus. And Anyway, I just thought it was so interesting from the king's perspective that he could not sleep at night because he knew that he made a mistake. He was like, couldn't sleep at night, and he was overjoyed when he heard like, hey, Daniel is alive. Like, he did not get eaten by the lions. And then of course the people that accused him, all of them and their family were torn apart. It's sad, but it says that they were torn apart and eaten before they even closed the den or whatever, the lion's den. So it's pretty brutal. But guys, just remember today that we can be like Daniel. We can thank God and continue to do our best, continue to be faithful and responsible in everything that we do in our day-to-day. So I pray you guys have a good day. Bye.